Welcome to the Juniper podcast, where we talk about the more nuanced aspects of being a pet parent with some of the most interesting people in the pet space. Let's get into it. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Juniper podcast. I'm super excited for today's episode. We're here with Nicole Marchand, who's the founder and CEO of Dogchild, one of our favorite companies. So just to kick it off, Nicole, can you give us a little intro about you, how you started Dogchild, and anything else you want to share?
Yeah, absolutely. So Dogchild is now the leading recipe community for dog parents. So we show dog parents how to cook everything from dog treats to full meals and really ensure that when you're making these different, whether you're making treats or food, that you're making it in a healthy way, that it's simple, and then of course that your dog loves it. So we release weekly recipes every week to our community, which is now at 250,000 dog parents. Do cooking videos, and then we also sell products that help you cook for your dog to make them nutritionally balanced. So that's what we do. And I guess I'll tell you just a little bit on why I started Dogchild. So I had a senior Maltese poodle. You can kind of see her in the background. Her name was Charlotte. And she was a really picky eater. So I was ordering all sorts of different fresh food delivery services. Didn't like most of them. I kind of looked on the back of it and thought, like, why can't I cook that at home? So I went on YouTube, found the first recipe that showed up, which is kind of the classic rice, ground beef, apple, and carrot. Started cooking it. She loved the food. She was gobbling it up. And then mentioned it to my vet and got a really stern lecture on just how difficult it can be to ensure your dog is getting all the right nutrients when you're home cooking. I went home, I did more research. I found out that 95% of the recipes found online right now lack essential nutrients for dogs. I also left that vet appointment feeling really frustrated, thinking, well, like, it can't be that hard to learn how to cook for our dogs. Like, if we can develop AI and all these technologies, surely we can figure out how to make food for our dogs at home in a healthy way. And that's really when I started Dogchild. I wanted to empower dog parents to be able to cook for their dogs at home.
It's just so wild to think how big your community is now. 250,000 people looking for this. We've sort of noticed similar things at Juniper when we've just been looking for enrichment. Like, we put out an enrichment guide and how many people were in these enrichment groups trying to get ideas. So the market is just so huge and people really want and need answers. So I just love that you're putting out something that is actually so useful to people. I think there's a lot of dog parents that want to get more involved, but just have no idea where to start. So how did you go about in building, I guess, such a huge audience to be able to read and follow these recipes?
I think it all goes back to the way we develop and share our recipes. So like I said, we make them very easy. And rather than, there's some other companies that have tried to tackle home cooking and there's these complicated spreadsheets and you're just like, your head is spinning. So we really make it recipe led with fun, simple recipes. And then in the community aspect, people are able to share their own recipes and get feedback from others. So I think it really comes down to, everyone loves to see recipes and food and dogs. And so that's really what helps us grow. We've also tried to make it a really positive community. So we don't try and preach like you have to feed your dog completely home cooked or you're a bad dog parent. We try and explain that even a little bit of fresh food can go a really long way in your dog's diet. So if that means like adding some blueberries to your dog's food or adding a little bit of yogurt, like that can really help them long term. So we try and be, really open, friendly, and sharing simple nutrition tips and rather than complicating it.
That's so important. And I feel like it's the perfect mixture where, like you said, people love seeing recipes and dogs. And like, there's that whole thing where it's really satisfying to watch a video or see nicely taken photographs of someone putting a recipe together. And then you get to see the final product. And like, that's such a thing, especially on social media these days. I mean, sometimes I've like woken up from a stupor where I just spent 3 hours watching someone decorating a cake. And it's even better when it's something for my dog and then it's knowledge that I can actually take and apply to our life and feel like I'm doing something fun. I wonder where that love for DIY comes from. I feel like the pet community as a whole is seeing so many more dog parents wanting to take things into their own hands. Do you have any theories about why that is? Like, I know that the way that your vet responded is a common story I've heard from a lot of people who have tried to take more initiative.
Yeah, so I think there's like a number of reasons why people are moving towards do it yourself. I think there's a move towards like natural whole foods. And so when you're cooking for your dog or even when you're cooking treats, which is another like really easy way, you know exactly what is going into that food. I'd say like the second one can be cost. So when you're ordering, fresh dog food or even some of the more expensive brands, when you start to cook for your dog at home, it can save up to half the cost of a fresh food delivery service. And then on treats, when you look at the cost of going out and buying a bag of treats, when you can easily make those at home and they're so simple that a lot of people are really turning towards that. And then I would say kind of like the third thing is I always say like what happens in with children and babies follows with dogs. So you've seen this whole movement towards like clean labels, clean food for babies, and that's now following to dogs. And I'll get like a lot of my recipe inspiration from baby videos and kid home cooking. And so you see, dog dads and dog moms pureeing this like organic food. And you're like, that's actually really simple. And so I think that's really inspiring a lot of people. It's kind of that trend now going towards dogs.
It sounds like what you do is really take away the intimidating factor. Like, I mean, I think I've always even been intimidated that if I were to start cooking for my dog, how am I really going to get everything that they would need? And that has always been like, oh, well, it would be fun to start with treats. That's why I have to plug our free download that we did with you. Juniper and Dogchild in collaboration have this free guide that you can download on juniperpet.co, which is easy dog treat recipes. And if you want to see more of those, you can see a ton of them on Dogchild's website too. But we were just like so in love with how easy and simple, and then also like aesthetically pleasing these can be too. Like I think you think, oh, this is gonna like look so gross when I make it, but everything on your site actually looks really good. And I think that that's an important part because then you feel like you did something like it's fun to put that in front of your dog. Like it's just such a good, satisfying feeling. So how do you get to the people who are too intimidated because they feel like they're not getting every nutrient, or they would just like calculate something wrong, or that feeling that you're not going to get everything towards your dog? Because I think something you said that was really interesting was that like even if you're just starting with throwing a few blueberries down for your dog on top of their food, like even that's helpful. And that I think is so good to hear.
So you have to think about what dogs are eating. They're eating often the same thing every day for like breakfast and dinner. And so that's not great for their gut microbiome. So adding a little bit of diversity can go a really long way in your dog's health. And there's all sorts of studies. So like I said, yeah, any sort of even fresh meat, seeds, there's all sorts of possibilities of you adding to your dog's food. Another way that we make it easy is, like I said, our recipes. So we lay it all out exactly how to make it. We do them just like you would cook for yourself. So it's, we've got like a pound of meat. We have exactly how many vegetables you should have. And then we have it so all the nutrients are in. And so all of our recipes I develop alongside with our nutritionist that works with us. And then we have a vet review the recipes as well, just to like check it off on the meal side. And then, when you go into, all the different minerals your dog needs, things from like calcium, vitamin B, vitamin A, which could just like feel really overwhelming. That's where we sell a nutrient mix. So if you don't want to add, all of our recipes show you how to do it completely on your own. Or if you want to add in our nutrient mix, which can make it a lot simpler for a dog parent who's just starting out and is unsure. And then the other thing we try and tell dog parents, like there are certain nutrients you really do need to hit. But when you start to home cook, if you're rotating what your dog eats, so just like I eat something different for breakfast and dinner, and we're rotating through constantly different foods. When you start to home cook, your dog you have to be less stringent because your dog is getting nutrients from different foods kind of each week if you rotate the recipes, which we really encourage dog parents to do.
This always makes me think about the history of dogs and domestic dogs living alongside people. And I'm so cautious not to over romanticize that history because there have clearly been a lot of problems and there are a lot of things that we're much, much better at now. But I feel like the variety that our canine companions used to be able to have just by like eating our table scraps and that sort of thing. I feel like the homemade recipes and even just like you said, the treats, like we live in a van and it's not feasible for us to home cook everything for Scout. That would be a lot of storage space, a lot of just things that we don't have access to, but we can still do some of the homemade treats and adding fresh foods, trying to give her that variety. And I feel like we try to make it like a happy medium of giving her more spice, really like the same way that I'd be so sad eating the same meal every day. And like canines are scavengers, like predators and scavengers. And it's not natural for them to be eating the exact same thing every day. But then doing it with the backing of vet resources and actual nutrition studies and knowledge so that it's like dog ownership 200 years ago, but actually backed by science now and much better. And I'm really drawn to that.
Yeah. And if you just take kind of the logic, it's like if you're not feeling well yourself or you go and see your doctor and you have a health ailment, they're generally going to tell you to eat whole, fresh foods. And so you just like have to take that same logic towards your dog. And that holds true, right? Your doctor is going to encourage you to eat salads, vegetables, fruits. So the same holds true with our dogs.
Yeah, I think that totally makes sense. And I think it's so confusing to dog parents right now because there's so much out. There's more than has ever been out on the market for dog food right now. And if you start to get into this world, you'll notice a lot of like everybody, I find in general, in dog parenting world that there's a lot of like gatekeeping and like I know what's better than you and like this is the way to do it and no my way is right and whatever. And I love that you're just kind of going back to the basics of like, okay, what if we just first of all variety and what if we put some fresh food down? Okay, like if we start with that, how can we be wrong, right? And then if we go to, some of these online communities, it can get really like heated talking about if it's right to feed raw or this or that. And everybody has opinions about it. So like, how do you manage that in your community? And like, how do you keep it like give information without being like, this is the way, but here's how to figure it out for you and your dog?
So one aspect is there's a lot of ways to feed your dog a healthy meal. Just like, once again, going back to us, I'm sure I eat very differently than you do, or my neighbor does, or other people do. So there are many ways to feed a dog, and there's not necessarily one right way. You have to figure out what works for your dog, just like you figure out what works for you. So I'd say one of the biggest debates in our community would be whether to include grains in your dog's food. So, barley, quinoa, oats, and then some people are adamantly against that. So you have to see what works for your dog, and you can tell what works and doesn't based on essentially their stool. So you see what they're digesting, you see how they do, and you monitor that. And so we tell people, nutrition a lot of the time is, it's an opinion, right? But there's many ways. So we're pretty strict on, no diet bashing. You can give scientific facts, but if someone wants to feed their dog grains and you don't agree with that, there's no right or wrong way on that side. So we try and keep it pretty open and allow each dog parent to find what works for their dog specifically.
That's a huge passion of both of us here at Juniper. And honestly, one of the founding principles of the community, one of the things that Allison sure drew me in with was that idea of the nuance. And it's so tough to be a dog parent right now, especially if you're a dog parent who spends time online. It can be the greatest place in the world and we can learn so many things, but it can also be one of the worst places. And I'm so excited every time there's a community that really prioritizes that balance of grounded in data. You can share all of the facts that you want. You can point people to studies, but then fundamentally giving them the freedom to make their choices because it's hard enough out here already.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And like I said, it goes back to like the way we all eat. Some people eat keto, some people eat plant-based. They're still healthy diets. They're just different ways. And that's what we really try and express. But yes, there are many ways you can feed your dog and cook for your dog. There's no like right or wrong answer.
Here at Juniper, we make content for your favorite pet brands. We're 100% women owned and operated, and you can hire us to create your articles, blogs, videos, email marketing campaigns, lead generation guides, and more. Visit us at www.juniperpet.co to learn more. Thanks for listening. I think one question I have, I'm speaking from personal experience, but something that has held me back from adding too much in, I do some, like I make my own popsicles for my dog, which are healthy. And I've gotten some recipes from you for that, like what we can put in there. And she loves that kind of stuff. And I put some fresh, like blueberries and stuff on top. We do pumpkin. So sometimes I'll mix in things. And then if we have my husband's cooking some meat, we'll be like, okay, it's going to be a meat dinner. And we try to swap that out for dinner. But one of the biggest reasons I haven't gone like all in on this is because my dog is or was overweight and we had to go on weight management food. And then I finally got her to like, it took months, but got her to the weight that she's supposed to be at. So anytime I'm going to like add something in, I'm just like, oh, like how do I figure out what like the macros on this would be? And then I'm like, whoa, I'm like literally thinking more about like what she's eating than what I'm eating. Legit. Like I would have to be weighing this stuff and figuring it out. Do you have any ways that you can help people, especially if they're concerned with weight, in figuring out like how much their dog should have?
So we do have weight loss recipes that help dogs lose weight. But anecdotally, we find that the switch to fresh food will help a dog lose weight. Once again, going back to that basic principle, they're eating whole fresh foods, fresh meat. Generally, home cooking is going to be lower in carbs. And so, anecdotally, we've seen a lot of dogs lose weight just on the basis of the fresh food and monitoring the diet a little bit more. And then we do have some temporary weight loss recipes. And so those would be higher in fiber, higher in vegetables. So the dog still feels really full, but they're not getting as many calories. And we're using lean meat, fishes. And then we do have guidelines on how much to feed your dog. Once again, those can be all over the map, though, because each dog has a different metabolism. They're going to have a different exercise routine. So we give guidelines. So that's something as a dog parent, you really do have to manage. And we do say, if your dog does feel hungry and they're trying to lose weight and you think your dog is really hungry, give it like a week just to kind of go through. It's like when you start a weight loss program, you're really hungry at first. And the ways to help your dog feel full is once again, like you're doing like the pumpkin and doing different healthy fruits and vegetables to help your dog.
Vegetables are such a game changer. Scout has epilepsy, and we ended up having to put her on an anticonvulsant 2 years ago. That was a horrible process, horrible decision. It's gone well. It's fairly well managed, but her biggest side effect is ever since going on that medication, she thinks she's starving all of the time. Like, it actually took a huge hit to like her training of impulse control around food and all of these things. I was like, oh my gosh, like they told me increased hunger was a side effect, but like you actually feel like you're withering away. The ability to give her things that like feel filling volume wise, but don't increase her weight. She's also a dog with joint issues. She's like the unhealthiest healthy dog in the world. Yeah, so I definitely second that just anecdotally, like with her, even just watching the change in her demeanor when I'm able to give her, I don't know, like whatever it is, like cucumbers or just a bite of what I'm eating and seeing her calm down a little because she's no longer feeling like she's starving.
I find there's like nothing more satisfying than hearing your dog crunch on a fruit or vegetable too. It's like the cutest thing. Where like if that was a human doing that, you'd be disgusted. But when a dog is like munching on food, it's just adorable, I find.
Why is that? You're so right. And it is such a weird thing. That little crunch is the cutest sound in the world. And it's similar to like me and my husband always joke. We're like, why does it sound so good when she's drinking water? I'm just like, yeah, drink that water. Like I'm cheering her on like she's on a marathon. She's just a dog like existing, but it's just like you just want the best for them and you're just happy when they're doing something healthy. Yeah, you're eating a cucumber.
Yeah, no, it is. What breed of dogs do you both have?
We have healer mixes.
Yeah, they're both healer mixes.
Healer mixes. Oh, very cute.
Yeah, so they're both, well, actually, my dog's still, like, she's about to turn 2, so she's kind of still just getting out of that puppy phase, running around. She was burning calories like crazy in the early days, and that's how the weight kind of came so quickly for us, because it was like she was burning those calories off when she was a puppy, and then at some point, she got her spay surgery. She just grew up. Her hormones changed. And then I was still like, she still needed a lot of training. So I was still treating her like crazy during training. And then I took her to the vet and they were like, she's definitely overweight. And I was like, I was trying to do everything right. I was trying to manage. And then, they just changed. So it's been going well other than that. But I think like the next phase is I really want to get into more cooking for her. It's also just fun. Like, how do you balance, I guess, keeping it fun for your audience and not making it feel like you have to cook 7 meals and, like basically be a personal chef for your dog? Like, how do you keep it kind of light and fun and get like invite people into that?
Yeah, I think we do like very humanized recipes. I'd say like our most popular ones are air fryer treats. And because they're so simple, you're just buying one, they're often one ingredient, like taking a banana, taking an apple, or even buying liver at your local grocery store, chopping it up. And so for people, that's so approachable. And everyone seems to love an air fryer, and it just makes it so easy. You don't have to go out and buy a dehydrator or some sort of extra equipment. It's just something you can easily do every week and kind of have on hand. So it's nice. And then last week we did a really fun topper recipe, which was canned salmon, mango, and cucumber. It took 2 minutes to make. It cost 25 cents a day and it made enough topper for a month. And so just like keeping them really easy and fun, like that's something anyone can really do. And that's a great recipe as well, even if your dog, because a lot of dogs don't love fruit and vegetables, but they're going to love the salmon. So get that satisfaction of your dog eating those healthy fruits and vegetables, and they love the taste. Both my dogs have gone nuts for that one. So
The cost savings are just absolutely wild to me. And I feel like this is just anecdotal, of course, but I'm really involved in the training side of the dog world. Scout had a lot of behavioral struggles earlier in our days. She came in as a stray. We don't really know the history there. Long story short, I feel like the Venn diagram of dog parents who are really invested in training and then who end up making their own treats or food, there's a lot of overlap there. And I often wonder if a big part of it is those cost savings that you're talking about. And then also like this idea that for me, at least, it's kind of recharging to feel like I'm providing for my dog in that way, but I can be relaxed in my kitchen space and like have music going and like she's not actively demanding my focus in that moment, but I still feel like I'm doing something good for her. And especially at the height of our behavioral struggles, just like getting my husband in the kitchen with me and making her treats. And we'd use those treats then when we were out training. And sometimes the training itself was stressful, but it was like almost a way to recharge, but still feel like we were doing something for her.
it is. Yeah. I think for me too, it sounds like for yourself, sometimes cooking can be a way to disconnect and relax. And then, yeah, you've got this new bond with your dog. And then going back to the cost savings, there are some, once again, some research and studies showing that, feeding fresh food can help you with your dog later on with health issues and longevity. So there could even be cost savings over the life of your dog because they are eating fresh whole foods.
That's true. That's a really good point, too. Is like, what are you saving in vet bills, ideally, if this diet is working for your dog? So, one thing we didn't talk about that I would just love to know a little bit more about you and how you got into this. I was looking at your background. Seems like a lot of like investing and finance type of work. How did you go from that into starting a pet company?
So I started in finance, started in investment banking, and then I had my own investor relations firm. So we would help companies raise capital and go public. So I'd work with all sorts of different entrepreneurs and help them go through that process. I have always been a very passionate dog parent. So I've pretty much been dog obsessed. And since I was born, I've always had a dog. I started a non-for-profit called Love Puppies Against Puppy Mills. So I've always been really active in the dog community. And when COVID happened, just like a lot of people, I had a change of heart on what I was doing. I was kind of sick of sitting there with investors talking about like crypto companies or cannabis and was just like, what am I doing with my life? So took a step back. And that's really when and just took some time off and really wanted to see like where I wanted to go next and what I want to do. And that's when I had that conversation with my vet. And then at the same time, I just saw, my mom starting to cook for her dog. I saw like friends cooking for their dogs. And I just really saw this swelling of people starting to do it. I could really see a trend of more and more people cooking. So that's when I decided to take the plunge. And, working in the financial world, like I said, I'd work with lots of founders. So I saw that side of the business. So ready to jump in.
That's so great to go from like seeing that side of the business, but then going into the hard mode of being a founder. And so how has it been for you to jump into the pet space? Like this is kind of what I did was moving from tech into pets, and I found it to be like a totally new world. How did you find that?
Yeah, no, it's such a great world. I'd say people are so helpful and it's such a great community with other fellow pet founders. So everyone is in like really welcoming. There's obviously roller coasters because it's like a steep learning curve and running like an operating business. There's always things day to day, but overall it's been like so fantastic and it's just so much more rewarding and, like getting those like nice messages from people cooking the recipes or those comments, like they go a really long way in just making you feel like you are making a difference out there. So, and it's very different than the world of finance. I will say that. So, yeah.
The community aspect I feel like is so helpful. Like you said, the impact that a simple message from someone saying, "Hey, you shared this thing and it positively impacted my life with my dog." Like there's no feeling like that. It's an incredible feeling. It's worth so much of the associated stress, but of course does not, make the associated stress go away completely.
Yeah, like the best is sometimes I'm on our Facebook group and I'm seeing people like using our home cooking guide. They've got everything out. You're just like, that's so nice. Yeah, we are.
Yeah, it's so important to have a feedback loop like that, which is so nice because you have this community. So when you started this, did you think community would be such a big part of it? Or did it just sort of emerge that sharing recipes and talking and swapping notes with each other would be a big part of it for Dog Child?
Yeah, like that was always my plan to do the recipe side because I cook a lot for myself and for family and friends. And so I'm always on recipe sites. So I knew that was such an important aspect to have. So 100%. But it did take, at first, it took a while to get it to grow. But then now that it's growing is one of those things where it just has a life of its own. And what's also nice is because it's a community, it doesn't involve me as much as it used to because you're having those conversations between community members. And we've got some pretty good rules in place and things like that. So that's also really satisfying when you go on and like people are answering other people's questions, using our guide, using information or blogs that we've published, and the community is just like kind of going together. That's really nice.
Yeah, that is the best. And also, like, it's actually very, very hard to do. I think a lot of people think they'll just set up a community, put some rules in place, and then that will happen. Like, you actually have something really special if that's working as intended, like that. People think that that's easy to do and they have no idea how hard it is. Like, that is so hard. And that the scale that you've done it is just incredible. I'm like so excited to see this.
Yeah, I'd say the only struggle I do have, which comes up, is like, yeah, you're never off. Like on the weekends, you can't really walk away because you always kind of have to be like monitoring things a little bit. But that's something I am trying to like fix
That's
more.
like the huge trade off to a community. It's like, yeah, you hope that people have been paying attention long enough that somebody will chime in on that thread before you don't see it. But yeah, that anxiety is always there. I love that though. Like the power of the community and people sharing with each other, though, I think is so impressive. Like what you've built is so awesome. Can you tell people a little bit more about how to get involved if they're interested in cooking for their dog, wanting to join your community? Where can they go and how can they find out more about this?
On our website, you can find all of our recipes there. We do a weekly recipe, like I said, and send it out by email. So if you want to join our recipe club, you can sign up on our email as well. Then we have a Facebook group, which would be our most active home cooking community. And so that's really if you want to be cooking full meals. I would say that's like your best way to go there. It's called Healthy Homemade Dog Food Recipes. And you can find it through Dog Child as well. And then lastly, if you're more into making treats and seeing how to do those, I'd say follow us on Instagram where we do fun videos on how to cook for your dog.
Amazing. Thank you so much. This has been so great. I feel like I learned so much and it was so good to finally meet you because you're one of the first like people I found and came across and was like, this is so cool. I need to learn more about this. So I was super excited to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me. Have a great day and we'll definitely be in touch then.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye. That's all for today. To learn more and discover the best hand-picked pet products, visit Juniper at www.juniperpet.co.